We are in the time period between the holidays of Passover and Shavuos. We are counting the Omer. This is a 7-week process of self-refinement. Each week we work on one of our 7 emotional traits as we count the 49 days of the Omer. This is the 3rd week, the week of Tiferet, the emotional trait of beauty and harmony. In the first week, we worked on rectifying the trait of Chesed, which is our ability to love and to give, reflecting God's goodness and giving. It's a benevolent, generous perspective, wanting to say yes and to give more and more. In the second week, we worked on refining the trait of Gevurah, which is strength, awe, and the ability to have correct boundaries. In that trait, a person sees the need to respect others and to have appropriate dignity, meaning leaving the right space and perhaps backing off and sometimes saying no, with clarity, with justice, the ability to say no. After having worked on refining Chesed and Gevurah, in this 3rd week, we work on Tiferet, which is the quality of living in a beautiful way, emulating God's compassion. Tiferet is the synthesis of Chesed and Gevurah, of knowing when to give and how, of when to hold back and in which way, when to say yes and when to say no, all in a compassionate, balanced way. Refined Tiferet brings us to a new level of inner harmony. These are the 3 core emotional feeling traits. How do we experience the trait of Tiferet? Let me give you an example. Let's say that a person is an employer and he's being asked by his employee for a rather large salary increase. In Chesed, the employer sees the good qualities of his employee. He looks with a generous perspective, and he sees that the person is really doing the best that he can, doing quite a good job. He's doing better and better, and he applauds the employee's good efforts, and he wants to give the raise. He wants to say yes, because that's the quality of Chesed. In Gevurah, the employer sees with an accurately critical perspective. From this perspective, he sees that the employee is relatively new, has still not developed his skills yet, is doing a good job, but still on a certain level, and certainly sees where he is lacking and where he really needs to improve. And so he doesn't feel that this person yet deserves any raise, and so he wants to say no. In Tiferet, however, it's different. In Tiferet, the employer sees with a broader perspective. He sees both sides. He feels compassion for the employee, and he really wants to encourage him. He sees that this is a person who, with the right training, will really do a lot better and will grow into a good employee. And so he wants to deal with this with Tiferet in a beautiful, balanced, and harmonious raise. So this employer gives a small raise and promises future raises when certain goals and levels have been accomplished. Now, this decision from Tiferet is not a simple yes. It's not saying, yes, you can have the raise, nor is it a no. Sorry, you can't. This is different. This is a beautiful combination beyond yes or no. Tiferet is not a compromise. Tiferet is a new level altogether. Tiferet is a higher perspective. It's a harmonious overview that allows for a multifaceted and compassionate solution. Here, the employer is able to have the benefit of knowing what is the yes being aware of what is the reason for no, and coming to a higher and broader perspective, which gives a much more harmonious, multifaceted result. During the week of the Omer, we work on every aspect of each trait. Every day we progress, working on moving forward with more consciousness. Every day counts. How do we work with this? In Chesed of Tiferet, for example, we relate to another person's behavior by looking at him with compassion, instead of just looking at him with a sense of our own feelings and how we feel about what he is doing, or whether we like it or not. Instead of that, we look at him with compassion. We realize, we see his limitations, but we realize that looking from the perspective of compassion will give us the overview that will help us to see him, not just our feelings, in a better and more harmonious way. In Gevura of Tiferet, we are able to be unselfish, to hold ourselves back, in order to care about another person, and therefore to build a harmonious relationship with that person. In Gevura of Tiferet, we realize that whenever we want to make a relationship with another person, we need to give them space, care about them, see what they need and what they want and what's important to them, who they are. And in order to do that, we need to hold ourselves back. That's the Gevura for the sake of Tiferet. We work with Chesed of each trait, then we work with Gevura of each trait, and then with Tiferet of each trait as we go on to complete the work of each week of looking at each of the 7 aspects of each trait, one after the other, for 7 weeks. Let's look for a moment at the archetypal figure that represents Tiferet, and that is Jacob, Yaakov, the third of our biblical forefathers. He completed the work of the 3 patriarchs. Jacob remained committed, continuing to faithfully serve God through the many complex events of his life. He relied on God's compassion while he worked with difficult people in difficult situations, one after another. Jacob worked hard and found ways to bring out the good wherever he was. In all circumstances, and there were difficult ones in his life, in all circumstances he went forward and he built the foundation of the Jewish people. Each and every one of Jacob's sons became the founders of all of the 12 tribes. This week, let's work to bring Tiferet into our lives by looking for the beauty in each person, finding the good in each situation, feeling compassion and empathy for another person in his circumstances of life, and appreciating Hashem's compassion for us, and emulating that compassion by being compassionate to others. The energy of each of the 49 days of the counting of the Omer makes us shine. Let's make every day count.